Hello, and welcome to Remembering Together, the LMJ's podcast. I'm your host, Matt Harrold. Each month, we explore the many ways Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia touch our lives, from personal stories of families affected by this disease to the ongoing efforts to find a cure. Join us as we raise awareness, share support, and learn together about the impact of Alzheimer's on nearly 7 million people worldwide. Let's remember together and work toward a future where no one faces this disease alone. Welcome to Remembering Together, an LMJ's Lost Souls podcast. We have made it to the dreaded number 13, so episode number 13. You guys are here, so you didn't get to pick your episode number. But I can't believe I've made it to 13 episodes. It helps to have amazing guests. And the good news is I have two amazing guests with me today. As I mentioned, every time we open here, I do love to talk. So I will introduce myself first, but our guests will do a majority of the talking here. My name is Matt Harrold. I am the Vice President of LMJ's Lost Souls Alzheimer's Fund. And today I have with me two people who have over 22 years of experience in both the senior care and community care space. Our first guest is Marla Goldberg, who is the Community Outreach Liaison with CJE SeniorLife. Marla, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And next up is Cathy, Samatas, who is the Director of Business and Development at CJE SeniorLife and the creator of Dementia Reality. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So first, I'll let you guys introduce yourselves on a more deeper level. So I'll start with you, Marla, if you just want to tell our audience and our listeners about you, both personally and professionally.
Sure. My name is Marla Goldberg. I've been at CJE SeniorLife for coming up on 7 years. And my first 3 years were spent with volunteer services, where I got to meet many of the departments we work with, which is amazing. And all the services, familiarize myself with them, the services and programs that we offer. And then I had a wonderful opportunity for a promotion and coming into this community outreach role. And so with that, I had a quick study learning of senior living and learned all that I could quickly and fast and proudly represent our assisted living senior community up in Deerfield named Weinberg Community, and also representing all of CJE and its services. So when you hear of the senior expos in your local communities or through your park districts or there's even an association that puts on senior expos. I'm the one who comes out, sets up the table, talks with people about what we have to offer, and a few swag items are always fun to bring along. And I am happy to be here. I'm happy to learn more. I'm happy to talk more and let you all know what's going on.
Tell us about you personally. Where'd you grow up?
Personally, grew up in the Chicago area. I say the wonder years on the south side, up to the suburbs, off to college in Iowa, graduated with a healthcare background, moved over into social work, and then later transitioned into community work. And so I have a couple masters that serve me well and help me a quest for lifelong learning, I would say.
There you go.
And improving. I don't pretend to know everything. I love to learn. I say when I stop learning, I stop working. So I'm in it for the haul, I guess you could say.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for being here.
Thanks.
And
Again,
Cathy?
Yeah, thanks again for having me. So I started out at CJE about 8 years ago now, and I actually began working for them in their community engagement and education department, and was the director of that department for a while. And while I was there doing some projects, I came to the realization that kind of led me to this current project I'm working on. And so then I came up with this idea for Dementia Reality, and my job transitioned into the development of that program and the marketing, the business development of that project. So I've been doing that. My background, I grew up in Elmwood Park, Illinois, little town, spent pretty much all of my life in there or in Chicago. I went to school for for psych and did my master's in gerontology all in Chicago,
Awesome.
Loyola University and
Yes.
Eastern. So kind of a local girl. But my experience before working with CJE SeniorLife was working in the ethnic community organizations across the city for about 13 years. So kind of been in this space of Chicago senior living for senior care for a long time.
So I guess the important thing, so when we say Elmwood Park, River Grove, what is the first thing that everyone thinks of?
Johnny's Beef.
And
Well, New Star probably.
and Gene and
Jude's.
Come
Gene and
on.
Jude's.
I
Well,
mean,
that's the competition. a
Yeah, I
little
got
further away,
you. First,
you know.
okay, fair.
I did grow up on the Rubber Dog, so
all right,
you know.
all right. I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Too funny there. First thing, obviously, you guys are very knowledgeable about it, but our audience and listeners aren't. Do you want to talk a little bit about what CJE is and what you guys do?
Sure. CJE SeniorLife has been around for, I'm going to go coming up on 55 years because we passed the 50-year mark. I like to call us a legacy organization in the community. We sit under the Jewish Federation of Chicago, but we serve everybody. So our services are open and our programs are open to everybody. Let's be clear about that. And we have, I like to say, a plethora of services that we offer. Everything from, we are one of the home delivered meals participants. We call ours home delivered meals. We offer affordable housing. We offer counseling services. We have a legal department. We work with the state and federal government called benefit services to make sure people learn what they are entitled to. We have case management. We have, what else do we do that I'm?
Assisted living, adult day service programs.
Love our adult day service. Our adult day
Residential.
services is one, I say our gems. We focus in on people who have early diagnosis, moving toward middle of dementia of any kind, obviously primarily Alzheimer's. And it's a space, we have 2 locations, thank you, Cathy, one in Deerfield and one in Chicago, right on Howard Street. And people come for the day. It's a respite for families. It's a respite for caregivers, where their loved ones are basically have a schedule, and every hour the activity changes. So keeping the engagement current, offering a meal, offering snacks, wonderful staff. And we're proud to offer that along with our many other services. Part of my job in the community is to partner with other organizations. So I'm working on the Memory Cafe with the Deerfield Public Library. We have an offshoot, we call it an outpost, that just opened, expanding our services into Chicagoland with the initiative called CJE Metro. So we are out there. We are offering lots of people lots of services, and we have a phone number to call.
Awesome.
People are ready.
50 plus years. That's obviously, you guys know what you're doing.
And started in actually senior living, senior housing.
Okay.
So that's been something that's been constant all along.
So, wow, and when you look at length of businesses that come and go, and in this space, you see places that don't make it, or that. Now, obviously, there's a lot more being built with aging occurring, but to be around for that amount of time, obviously, is a great PSA for both of you guys and for CJE as a whole. So we're here for a reason. Obviously, love to hear you guys talk about the company you represent, and we're going to talk about, obviously, Dementia Reality. But I want to just kind of give it to both of you. If you want to share as much or as little as you want about your personal experiences when it comes to Alzheimer's and dementia.
Yeah, sure. I can go first. I actually.
Not that we really want to go here. Yeah,
Not that
let's
we
go
wanna
first
go
to talk
here.
about this great topic. But
you know, it is. It's
important.
okay.
It is.
It's
Well, we're
okay.
here.
It's what brings us. It's what brought me to the industry. You know, I mean, and I think it brings a lot of people can connect to it. Given that, I think the statistics now is 1 out of every 6 people are caring for an older adult with some kind of, cognitive impairment.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we're part of a good crowd.
Right.
So my first introduction to Alzheimer's was with my godmother, who unfortunately passed away from it when I was in high school. And then currently, my mom's had a major stroke and brain bleed, and my dad's got some vascular dementia. So I'm living that life right now as well. So it's unfortunately something that I breathe at work and at home.
Right.
And I can second that emotion since my mom is actually living in our assisted living community, and she has been diagnosed for the last 2 years with Alzheimer's disease, and watching that disease move right along. And I think it's frustrating to think that everybody has such a different journey, that it'd be so easy if we just knew this was the next steps and could plan for it, and we don't. So I'm lucky to have it. I also want to say what's exciting, I think, Matt, most of all, is that while we've been here for 50 years, we do continue to innovate. And that's where I think Cathy lends her dreaming and implementation to this Dementia Reality program. So when that came along and I could take the caregiving training, I never would proclaim to know everything, but to still be learning again actively has been very powerful and impactful.
Well, I think, too, both of you kind of come from two different places here. Like you're saying, this is what your experience brought you to this industry.
Mm-hmm.
You were in this industry before your mom experienced, where I'm assuming was going through
Sure.
things, and now, it leads you both. And as the data says, 1 out of 6 and only gets worse. And, and the number goes from 6 million to 7 million people
Sure.
living with Alzheimer's, and that, everyone's journey is different. It's just scary. But also when people are trying to come together and do things to make it not perfect, but better than it is and than it was, and carrying into the future there. So we've said the word Dementia Reality a couple times here. So Cathy, I'm going to kind of kick it over to you and kind of talk to us a little or a lot about Dementia Reality and what that is.
Okay. Well, Dementia Reality is a caregiver training program that was originally developed for professional caregivers to teach empathy and understanding, and it does so through the use of virtual reality technology. We utilize virtual reality technology to give caregivers an opportunity to have a multi-perspective experience of what not only their care, good and bad, and how that can impact a person living with dementia, but also what it's like to look through the eyes of a person living with dementia. So they get to really see the impact that they have on a person living with dementia, but they also can see what it would feel like to embody that person and to see these situations through their eyes. And so we developed a program that's basically designed to be role specific. We followed some of we used all of the principles of adult learning actually in the development of it. So we wanted something that was relevant and meaningful, and something that would help to build internal motivation for the people who were actually caring for these people to want to learn how to be better at their job. And so each of our modules, and there's 6 of them, are role specific, and they're an hour long. And they start out with about maybe 30 minutes or so of a regular classroom didactic that kind of incorporates our basic framework, which is the who, what, and how of caregiving. Who is this person? We want to understand their personhood. We want to know who they are and see them as a person and not just a task.
Or the disease, not
or
just the disease, right?
Right. We want to talk about what is going on with them. What is the disease? What is the disease process that they're dealing with, and what that impacts, and how a person can be triggered internally and externally, and how that a job as a caregiver is to really focus on being that detective of what are they trying to communicate that I'm not understanding, and try to really get to the bottom of what are their needs, not just, stopping a behavior. We don't even really like calling them challenging behaviors. I think they're better phrased as expressions. They're trying to express themselves. What are they trying to say? And getting to the heart of that. And then how do you care for them in a really intentional and supportive way? And so that is the goal of Dementia Reality for professional caregivers. And we started doing it, and truly almost immediately we started hearing from the professional caregivers that families need this too, and
As you talk about this, it's too many times now that we've had a few episodes, obviously, of our podcast, that every time someone in the memory care space and that talks, as someone who's got young kids, the exact things you're like describing are what, that's what I talk about. I say it often on here, like how you come into the world is unfortunately a very similar way to how you leave the world. But like, as you know, they're trying to express themselves. I hear that all the time with a 3.5-year-old and a 2-year-old,
Sure.
but that's how this progresses, and this is how life moves. So I just,
100%.
it hits.
And
yes.
we actually played that in our family caregiver training. We spent a little time talking about a psychologist named Barry Reesberg and his theory of retrogenesis, and we use it to kind of explain to families that we're not saying that your loved one is like a 4-year-old, right? But we're saying that you need to keep them safe as if they were. You wouldn't leave a 4-year-old alone in a bathtub just to do whatever. You shouldn't leave, your loved one either. And so it resonates with people because for a lot of them, they don't understand that process of, the disease, how it's impacting them. And they're like, that's why I feel like I'm dealing with a 4-year-old all the time. And it's like, yeah, but
so
they're not.
true.
So you can't treat them like one. You need to treat them like the adult they are, but you need to keep them safe as if they were, and it's kind of really been a pivotal thing for a lot of families and for a lot of professionals that we work with.
Absolutely.
For them as well. I find it really fascinating that the training has resonated with whether it's a caregiver for their first time or someone who's been a caregiver for 25 years, right? They put it on, and the nurse who's been on a floor for 25 years says to me, I knew, but I didn't understand, and there's something about the experiential component to our training, that virtual experience that just really drives that transformative learning, that real deep understanding. And when you can feel something, that stays with you.
And I think to kind of piggyback or dig a little deeper, when you say virtual experience, you kind of want to walk through, as we talked before about this, when it's truly a virtual experience, and kind of walk through what that actually somewhat looks like, so people have a better idea.
Sure, yeah. So like I mentioned, each of the modules are role specific, so they each occur in a different setting.
Okay.
So we have, for example, morning ADLs, which are activities of daily living, right? And that module starts out with a woman in bed who needs to be woken up. So the caregiver comes in to wake her up. Then she helps her to brush her teeth and to toilet. And those 3 activities are what they're shadowing this caregiver, helping this person living with dementia do. And they see how that caregiver, when she's not doing such a great job of caregiving, they see how her behaviors and her actions and her inactions impact the person living with dementia, right? Then they'll take their headsets off and we'll have a conversation. And the first thing I'll ask a student is, how did that make you feel? Because I want you to connect to how you felt. I want you to get invested in this. And it's always fascinating to hear what comes, because the really good caregivers who get it are like, why did you not fire that person? That's ridiculous, that blah, blah, blah. But then you have the quiet ones, and you get a couple who say, I do that, and they recognize themselves in the role. Then we'll take them back into the same scenario, only this time it's done in a more intentional and supportive way. And we'll teach some skills. We'll teach some actual, techniques for how to accomplish some of the things, modeling behavior, hand under hand hold. We'll teach some using counts, things that are important for a caregiver to know how to use when people are struggling, because of
And that's all with the VR headset
That's all
on.
with the headset on. So then they'll take it off after the second time, and we'll say, well, how did you feel now? Oh, that felt so much better. Well, what changed? And we make them really process in real time what was the difference? Because it's that processing in real time that really moves the bar forward, right? When that's done, we go back into that headset for the 3rd time, and we allow them to embody the person living with dementia in the scenario. So for our first one that I was mentioning, the ADLs, they'll be waking up in the morning. and we'll start out in darkness. And they'll be in the virtual reality headset in darkness, and they'll be hearing noises, and they're left in that space just long enough to start thinking to themselves, what's going on? Did I break this? Is it wrong? They start getting confused. And as their confusion grows, there's a heartbeat in the background that they're syncing with. And the rate of the heart rate's increasing because that person's getting anxious as they're being woken up by strange noises and sights. And then they open their eyes. And when they open their eyes, they're opening them through the eyes of a person living with dementia that has a very condensed visual field. And so now they're seeing the world through that angle. And the person in that scene also needs glasses, and they don't have their glasses on. So in the first one that's done wrong, the glasses, it's blurry and it's this condensed field. And then in the second one, they give the glasses and they see the difference. And the first statement always is, well, I'll never forget their glasses again, because it's a visceral memory that they're going to have. Because, the research says any kind of a experience that you have in a virtual environment like that is coded the same way as any other memory. So really, we're giving them a memory of what it feels like to be treated that way. And that's what I think is so transformative.
Marla,
it's impactful, I was going to say.
Yeah, and you've been through this, so
I have. I was going to say.
I was going to want your experience or their feedback.
I think as a participant in the training, not only was it super important to learn what I think we don't maybe give enough credit to, and I was telling my sister because she wants to sign up finally for the next one, is that in this room it's limited to 10 participants. And so there's a given that people have something shared, although it's not specific. Obviously they're called to this training. And there is a safeness about it. And then the comfort keeps going up, right? Because here they've been isolated with their loved ones. And now they're with people who've also been isolated with their loved ones. And even though every person with dementia is on their own journey, they've all been isolated. So now they're no longer isolated. You have somebody who's sharing a wealth of information. You're imprinting on these memories at this deep, impactful, transformative level. And so you walk away with definitely, obviously graduations of, I would say, a sense of empowerment and understanding so that perhaps you will get to where you were and burnt out maybe comes to mind as a word or a term. You may get there, but hopefully you leave the room in a place that it's going to be a while before you get there again.
I mean, as you guys are explaining this, and it's really great detail. As somebody who went through the experience and had little to no training, and to hear, caregivers that are going, wow, that like hits home because I do it. I look a lot back at my time with my mom and how much you had to learn on the fly and really like figure out that, stop telling them that you told me that 5 times. Well, in the beginning, you didn't know any different because you didn't realize the experience of what you were really in. Obviously, saying hindsight is very rich because we would have all done a lot of things very differently, but that is definitely one of those that to hear that some longtime professionals in the space are going, wow, like I do it still that way and didn't realize I was or wasn't doing it that way. So,
and I would say one more thing, Matt. One of the things that always moves me is the sense of guilt that caregivers feel for the care that they're giving. And I had a gentleman at one of our sessions, our family caregiver training sessions, and he said to me, I struggle that I feel like I'm manipulating her because I know every time she repeats it and I find a way to, redirect her into something, I feel like I'm just manipulating her. And I have a lot of guilt about that. And he's like, I don't know what to do with that. And and we talked it through and I said, but you understand that she's not in a comfortable place when she keeps asking you those questions. over and over.
Reminder.
She's anxious, and you're caring for her by calming her down. You're not lying to her. You're not manipulating her. You're caring for her, and
Nice.
so, allowing people to understand that they have to give themselves some grace.
That's the word that was on my mind.
They
I
really
can't
need
believe you said
to,
it.
leave that space open for, I'm going to make mistakes. I mean, I teach this stuff and I see stuff coming out of my mouth. I'm like, Cathy, with my father. I'm like, really? You know better. Like I'm saying
Right.
in my own
Yeah.
head, but everybody reaches, nobody's perfect. And I joke
Well,
with,
when you're in it, you're in it,
When
and
you're-
we're not going to be perfect. And
100%.
You can teach us 100 times over, and you're still going to make mistakes. Yeah.
when it's your loved one,
Yes,
there's
absolutely.
there's dances you've done through years, and I always say to everybody, the good news is they'll forget. Right? Like, I mean,
They
they'll
won't
make
be
a
holding
mistake,
on.
they'll forget. You can bring them to a better place. If you leave them in an emotional space that's better than where they were when you got to, you sat with them, you've done a great job.
That's great.
So when you talk about, and you mentioned caregivers, so what is the audience, for this?
So our professional training really, we've got a broad spectrum of clients already. We have, we're perfectly designed for nursing homes, for CCRCs, for assisted living, memory care units, for adult day service programs, for any professional home health care agencies, hospice companies. We've also got clients who are schools. We're working with students now, trying to get them trained as they're coming into the field. So anybody who works with seniors who struggle or live with dementia or cognitive impairment, this is a valuable training, and that's just the professional one. The personal one, the family caregiver training, if you care for a loved one, friend, a parent, a spouse, anyone with living with dementia, and you'd like support, this is for them. Yeah.
And how different are the two trainings?
They're different.
Okay.
They're very different. So the professional training, like I mentioned, is role specific. It's 1 hour for each module. The family caregiver training is 2.5 hours. And the reason it's 2.5 hours is it takes into consideration the family dynamics at play. And it also spends time focusing on caregivers taking care of themselves. We kind of build in an opportunity for them to ask the questions that they need to ask and to kind of be heard. I think caregivers are, as Marla mentioned, right? They're so isolated. They don't get that opportunity to talk about what their needs are. I've had the woman
Oh my goodness.
who comes to me and says, what do I do with all my guilt? I feel so guilty because I don't want to do this. And no, who does? Who really was, I always say that for the family caregivers, I liken it to the Wizard of Oz. You're going on a journey you didn't intend to take.
Right.
You don't think you have what it takes to get through it, but you're going to meet a lot of people along the way.
Right.
And truthfully, that's the reality. None of us would sign up for this. No one in their right mind says, oh, I'll do that, but here we are.
It goes back. So my mom being in a memory care facility, I had some family members who were like, I don't really like to go see her. Like, it's not a good experience. I'm like, no kidding.
Yeah.
But like, what's the right thing to do here
And
is,
how do you live it?
and if the roles are reversed, and I have still resentment to that comment because, that was
Better
the
come
worst,
see me.
that was the worst place
Yeah.
to go. I mean, it was terrible. But when she passed, then you no longer have that ability to go to that place, so it's like, cherish the time you have because you don't know what you don't know in terms of that.
And we have a section in our family caregiver training where we talk about moments of joy and finding those moments of joy that can still exist between you and your loved one living with dementia. That it's about expectations. It's about setting different realistic expectations to allow you to have those still. So it's not just, sorry.
No,
Yeah.
I just want to say, I was going to add a couple things. One is, it's even as a non-direct caregiver to my mom and taking the family caregivers. You can be secondary, tertiary relatives to take the class, to educate yourself, to give yourself that empathy. And in that 2.5 hour time, and because of the things you build in and have learned and continue to, integrate into the training, there's almost grace that's built into that. And I think, again, I come back to that word all the time. It's how do we give ourselves the grace? Again, our siblings who are still saying, you told me that 5 times. I'm like, not helpful.
No.
Not helpful for anybody.
Oh, wow.
Her.
Now they're going to remember it.
Yeah.
Got it. That's good. No. Yes. Yeah.
So
Our little, my little reminder to them is whenever the words remember come into your mouth and you're going to say them, finish the sentence with remember they can't remember. And keep reminding yourself. Every time that word comes in your mouth, finish it with they can't remember so that you start resetting your expectations because that's what's got to happen.
nice.
Yeah.
So this will be, other than that statement right there, would you both say, I don't want to say biggest mistake, but biggest misconception people may make when it comes to caregiving that is most common? Other than that, because I'm going to say that is a very common one. But
Yeah. I would say the other one is thinking that their loved one is purposely doing things and manipulating them. Like, oh, they know this. They just yesterday they did this fine and now they're not, and they don't understand that concept of confabulation. They're just trying to make it make sense. They want it to make sense for them. And that's what's going on. They're not manipulating. They don't have the capacity.
How quickly that, depending on the severity of it, to that comment, I've heard that one, they were just doing that so well 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to my child comment of what your child can learn in 2 weeks is also, but on the flip side of it, the regression can occur very quickly in those same 2 weeks too. So they're not doing this intentionally. That
5 minutes,
huge,
Matt.
huge.
Not even 2 weeks, right? 5 minutes. It could be 5 minutes
Never
ago
know.
they were fine, and
Yeah.
I think that's the point I would make if you were asking, is that behaviors can flip in a minute, if you will, and to recognize in that way, this is still your loved one and their behaviors are out of their control. And that I can't control it, and certainly they can't control it.
Right.
So again, giving ourselves the grace to live with that because it's hard stuff. We're talking hard stuff. People are like, oh, your mom looks great. I'm like, yes, looks can be deceiving.
That's it. Yes.
And I also think it's not just about from, like we talk about, like I said, minute to minute, because, a person's cognitive capacity can be great. And then at the end of the day, their bucket's empty, and you start seeing, well, they were good on what happened, and, we a lot of people know the term sundowning and all of that, and what's going on? Well, their capacity's spent. And
able-bodied people have that.
Right.
So
I know someone just
don't see me at the end of the day, right?
Right. It's not a pretty sight, but I think that's a great point about the physical side of this, because so many times when people, bring up the cancer word and that, like that, the physical, you see that, whether it be the loss of hair or the person gets really skinny or whatever it is. There are people there isn't a sign that, people wear that says I have Alzheimer's, but you can have no idea that someone
is really, especially because a lot of people with the disease at certain stages, and when they're still verbal, can talk the everyday niceties.
Fake until you make it, kind of thing. Right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
They're great hiders.
Yes, 100%.
And they're responding maybe to the tone of your voice, or, if you're like, hey, how are you doing? Oh, great. They have no idea what you just said.
Right.
But the tone sounded right, so I'm going to go with it, And I think that that can be kind of confusing for a lot of people too,
I say that my mom would cheer for the wrong team often, that like,
It's a great way to put
and as a diehard sports fan, it was like, stop, don't do that. Like, but you hear other people to that,
right,
follow along, so to speak. Right. And that's not intentional by any means there. So where do we see Dementia Reality kind of going?
Wow, you know what?
International.
We just got our first hit. We just we're in the process of processing a client from Thailand, if you
Wow.
can believe it or not. I'm in conversations currently with people from Italy and the United Kingdom too. So I think this is a worldwide issue that is really craving solutions. And Dementia Reality really is the first training of its kind that offers this multi-perspective approach to care. You know, that idea of seeing yourself in the care role model and then embodying somebody with it to really kind of see it from their perspective. So I think that my hope is we're already in multiple states here in this country.
Right.
And my hope is that continues to spread and more people have the tools they need to understand. Because I really, really believe that caregivers have a heart to care. And if they're given the tools to do it well, that's the choice they're going to make. I think a lot of people come into this business because they cared for a loved one who maybe had the disease, and I think that's how it's going to be with everyone. And they didn't get the training to realize that it's different with every person, and so they don't know how to manage Marla, because I knew what to do when my mom got upset because I knew my mom, but I don't know Marla, and I don't know how to use her personhood, and I don't know how to use by building of trust and relationship with her, that's the better method, because that was instinctive in my own care, you know. So I think it's teachable. Empathy is teachable, and I think the more that we walk down this path of AI and technology, unfortunately, it becomes even more and more important to take the time to focus on teaching empathy. You know, people really need it.
And we could all use a refresher course in empathy, to be honest, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And in spite of, I can tell you that what I've been most impressed in these 4 years in working with the people who work with seniors, or older adults, we call them, like they're people who are wired to care, or they wouldn't be in the field. So it's not a wonder that I've befriended my colleagues, you know.
Yeah.
I think, and that I can go running to my colleagues and say, okay, I work for us, but I got to tell you, this is a 2.5 hour investment that is well worth anybody's time for the family caregiver. And if you wanted something to do for your organization or your home care agency, I may have many friends in home care, I'd love you to bring, us along.
Well, it's just AI cannot replace human interaction and human touch and empathy.
It cannot.
It doesn't work that way. It does a lot of great things, but that it cannot do. Yes,
and in
no doubt.
healthcare, it can have a huge impact on improving healthcare, right? Helping save time on, documentation and things like that, so that the caregivers have time to care.
Right.
To be there and hear, The fear, of course, is, the bottom lines will say, oh, well, we need one less because we can do it faster. But that's not what we need. Right? We need to keep it. We need to keep that advocating for the human touch, because sadly, you mentioned people don't want to be around people often who are struggling with dementia because it's hard for them and it makes them uncomfortable. So what do? They'll take advantage of, oh, I can see mom on a camera. I don't have to stop by. I can whatever, right? And those kinds of scenarios are going to make it harder and worse for these people, because they're going to have less and less of what they really need, which is that emotional touch and that connection that they're feeling separated from.
There is no shortcut. Life is hard. You decide what you want to do. You can take the easy way, but you're going to get back what you put into it. That's how it works there. So I appreciate you both sharing a lot of info here. So as we begin to wrap up here, I'd like to know if you could share information about CJE, about Dementia Reality, and truly anything else you want to share with our listeners and audience as we wrap up here.
Okay. So what's wonderful about CJE SeniorLife is we can be reached at 773-508-1000. We have a clinical team answering on our intake level. They will connect you. We know from experience, people wait and wait. They often call in with multiple problems. We can help triage that. If it's an emergent need, we can help that. If we don't serve you directly, we will make referrals or suggestions of where to reach out to. So I would say that's the best way to, and online, of course, www.cje.net lists everything you need to know about us and more. And with that, I turn over to Cathy.
Yeah, we kept Dementia Reality nice and simple. If you know the name, you know the website. It's www.dementiareality.org. And our website has tabs for both family caregivers and professionals. So
Awesome.
There's a contact form there, and I am on it answering. So if you have a question, you want to connect up, and anybody interested in hosting a training for family caregivers can reach out to us. Also, businesses interested in being part of our Train the Trainer program and bringing this training to their organizations, we welcome the opportunity to speak with them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
I would also
Sorry.
like to say thank you to you, Matt, because I
Yeah.
think that your receptivity and you gotta love LinkedIn. It's just a quick message. I'm like, saw your podcast. I know Mary,
Yeah.
like, it was great. You've been wonderful. Thank you to
Oh,
work with.
stop it. No, thank you guys, because
Yeah.
obviously we put this platform out. Obviously, we want information to be shared. I can't do it without people like you. So thank you both for being here, sharing your knowledge, sharing your experience today. So thank you both
Thank
very
you.
much. As I mentioned at the end here, this is a monthly podcast. So if there's anybody that our listeners or audience knows that would like to join me in the studio, whether you have a connection to Alzheimer's, have a connection to memory care, have a connection to the community, whatever that is, please do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you for joining us today on Remembering Together, the LMJ's Lost Souls podcast. We hope the information shared, which I believe was very beneficial and impactful. And as always, love your family, love your friends, and remember to cherish the time you spend with the ones you love, because at the end of the day, all we have is memories. Thank you.